It's 1200 BC in ancient Egypt. On the western bank of the Nile, a worshipper honors the green-skinned god of the dead. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, another devotee pays homage to a winged death goddess. What are the similarities between these two deities and the rest of the Egyptian and Mesopotamian pantheons? And what did these two worshippers believe the land of the dead looked like? For context, ancient Egypt flourished along the Nile from its unification around 3100 BC to Alexander the Great's conquest in 332 BC. Roughly 1,000 miles away, in modern-day Iraq, Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, saw the rise of city-states like Sumer, Babylon, and Assyria, all with a single stream of religious tradition, from 3500 BC to Babylon's fall in 539 BC. Egyptian creation myth, the Great Ennead. It's worth mentioning that ancient Egypt didn't have just one creation story. Different cult centers had their own versions. Some of the best known include Thebes, Hermopolis, and Heliopolis. For this video though, we're sticking with the version from Heliopolis, a major religious center in Lower Egypt. In the beginning, there was a dark, formless expanse of swirling water, which the Egyptians called Nun. From this primordial ocean emerged Atum, the first being and a self-created god. Atum was bored and lonely, so, depending on the version, he either spat or committed an act of self-love to create two gods, Shu, the god of dry air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. These two deities then gave birth to two children, Geb and his sister Nut. At first, Geb and Nut were born intertwined together. The other gods separated them, lifting Nut high above to form the heavens, while Geb remained below as the earth. From this cosmic separation came further generations of gods. Geb and Nut's union produced Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys, all who we'll talk about later. This group of 9 gods, Atum, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys, are collectively known as the Great Ennead, each of whom used their specialities to create the world. The Mesopotamian creation myth, Enuma Elish. Like the Egyptians, Mesopotamians had a few various creation myths, including the Great Flood myth, but we'll focus on the Enuma Elish, a Babylonian myth from around the late 2nd millennium BCE. Like the Egyptian creation story, this one also begins with primordial waters. However, while the Egyptians saw these waters as a single being, Nun, Mesopotamians saw them as a personified cosmic duo. Tiamat, the female saltwater, sometimes presented as a dragon or a sea serpent, and Apsu, the male freshwater. From their union, the first gods were born. But unlike the relatively orderly progression of the Egyptian gods, things in Mesopotamia get messy fast. The younger gods start being noisy, disturbing the peace of Apsu, and he plots to kill them. The god of wisdom, Ea, known as Enki in Sumerian, learns of Apsu's plan and strikes first, defeating him and establishing his home on Apsu's watery remains. But this victory comes at a price. His ancestral mother, enraged by the death of her partner, declares war on the younger gods. To battle the gods, she gives birth to an army of monsters: venomous snake, scorpion man, mad lion, exalted serpent, and the hairy one. The gods turn to Marduk, a young but powerful deity. Marduk confronts Tiamat. After a fierce fight, he defeats her and splits her body in two. Her upper half becomes the sky, and her lower half forms the earth, echoing the Egyptian idea of the separation of Geb and Nut. Egyptian Underworld, the Duat. The Egyptian underworld was known as the Duat. The dead were carried through the Duat by Ra, the sun god. Ra rode through the underworld on his boat known as the solar bark for 12 hours every night with the dead, before flying across the sky with the sun for the other 12 hours of the day. Our primary guide for this journey is the Book of Gates, an ancient funerary text that maps out the sun god Ra's nightly odyssey through the underworld. The Duat is a realm of challenges, gates, and judgment, and the journey is told through 12 hours of the night, with each hour marked by a gate. In hour 1, Ra begins his quest, accompanied by divine forces like magic and perception, along with the souls of the dead. During hour 2, they pass a western mountain at the entrance to the underworld, where a tall serpent guards the first gate. This serpent ensures that only those who belong can proceed. At hour 3, the travellers encounter a lake of fire surrounded by mummies and a fire-breathing snake. Ra and his crew provide offerings of food and beer to the mummies, who help pull the solar bark through the fiery lake. During hour 4, the crew encounters 6 goddesses and cross pits of fire before reaching the Lake of Life. In hour 5, La faces his greatest enemy, Apep, the serpent god of chaos and destruction. Apep, also known as the Lord of Chaos, tries to devour the bark. But Ra and 9 gods found in this section of the underworld fight back. However, Apep is persistent and will return again throughout the nightly journey. Somewhere between the 5th and 6th gates lies one of the most critical moments, the Judgment of the Dead. Here, Ra drops the dead off and carries on from hours 6 to 12, fighting Apep, eventually unifying with Osiris and defeating the giant evil snake god, before exiting the underworld and taking his rightful place back in the sky as the next day begins. The Judgment of the Heart ceremony. The final part of the journey for the dead happens at the Hall of Mart. Here, the deceased face Osiris, the god of the underworld, and 42 minor deities called the Assessors of Mart. Each must be addressed by name, and the deceased must proclaim their innocence of various sins. These are called the negative confessions. Next comes a main event, the weighing of the heart. Anubis, the jackal-headed god, presides over the great scales. The heart is placed on one side, and the feather of Mart representing truth and justice on the other. Tot, the god of wisdom and writing, plays the role of the secretary of the dead, recording the outcome of the judgment. If the heart is lighter than the feather, the soul is deemed pure and gains entry to Aru, the field of reeds, where they work for eternity by a river with workers to help them. This might not be our idea of heaven, but it was like a perfected version of their life by the Nile, where they wouldn't have to worry about errant floods or pests and could get on with their work peacefully. If the heart is heavier than the feather, weighed down by sin, the soul faces obliteration. Amit, a terrifying crocodile-lion-hippo hybrid, devours the heart, and the person's existence ends in oblivion. The Mesopotamian Underworld, Ereshkigal. The Mesopotamian Underworld was ruled by the goddess of the dead, Ereshkigal, who governs this shadowy realm, sometimes alongside her husband, Nergal. We have an idea of what the underworld was like due to several myths, the main two being the Epic of Gilgamesh and the other, the Descent of Inanna. Ereshkigal lies in a subterranean world. The entrance begins with a river, the Hubur, sometimes called the Waters of Death. To cross, you needed the ferryman Urshanabi, a character we meet in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Ferrymen and rivers are the common theme in underworld myths. Think Taron and the Styx in Greek mythology, or Ra's solar bark ferrying the souls in the Egyptian Duat. Once across, the path to Ereshkigal is blocked by 7 walls with 7 gates. In the Descent of Inanna, the love and war goddess Ishtar, or Inanna, can only cross into the underworld by removing a piece of jewelry or clothing at every gate, leaving her completely naked by the time she reaches Ereshkigal. Once past the final gate, the dead enters Ereshkigal. At the heart of the underworld lies Ereshkigal's palace, where she judges the dead, alongside the Anunnaki, once a term for a group of gods, but later referring to 7 judges of the dead. Unlike in Egyptian mythology, where judgment determines your eternal fate, the Mesopotamian underworld doesn't deal in morality. Everyone goes to Ereshkigal, regardless of how they lived. The judges presumably handled disputes among the dead rather than assigning punishment or reward. Ereshkigal itself is a dark, dreary place, often described as the house which none leaves who enters. There's no concept of eternal bliss or torment here, just a gloomy existence. The Egyptian Pantheon. There were said to be over 2,000 different Egyptian gods that were worshipped in different religious centers at different times during the Egyptian civilization. Some of the most famous include Osiris, the green-skinned god of the afterlife, who was linked to resurrection. He was murdered and chopped into several pieces by his jealous brother Set. Osiris was reassembled and revived by his wife Isis, becoming the ruler of the underworld and a symbol of eternal life. Isis herself was a goddess of magic and motherhood, and revered for her ability to heal and safeguard the living. Often by her side was Nephthys, her sister, who played a vital role in rituals and mourning. Hathor, goddess of love and music, transformed into Sekhmet, the terrifying goddess of war, when Ra sent her to punish humanity. Her rampage only stopped when she was tricked into drinking beer dyed to resemble blood. This combination of love and war resembles the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar, who was goddess of both. Ra, as mentioned, travelled through the underworld each night to battle Apep, ensuring the continuation of the cosmic order. Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis, was the enemy of Set and eventually defeated him, becoming the symbol of the pharaohs in Egypt. Tot was a scribe god of wisdom and writing, who recorded the judgments of the dead, while Sobek, the crocodile-headed deity, represented the river Nile's life-giving power. The Mesopotamian Pantheon. The Mesopotamian Pantheon is possibly even larger than the Egyptian, with estimates of around 3,600 gods. Although different city-states did place more or less emphasis on each of the deities, they did recognize them all. For example, Enlil, the god of air and storms, was the most important god to the Sumerians, whereas Babylon, who still worshipped Enlil, saw Marduk, the slayer of Tiamat, as their chief god, which explains his importance in their creation myth. Enki was a god of wisdom, creation, and medicine, who was worshipped for his divine knowledge. Egypt's closest comparison was probably Kut. Ishtar, or Inanna, was a central figure of love and war. During her descent to Akkala, she meets her sister Ereshkigal, the goddess of the dead, and ends up being killed by her judges, with her body displayed on a hook, before being resurrected and sending her husband to suffer in Ereshkigal in her place. Another key Mesopotamian deity was Shamash, the sun god and enforcer of justice, whose daily journey carrying the sun across the sky mirrors the Egyptian god Ra's path. This was just a quick introduction into the differences and similarities between the Egyptian and Mesopotamian mythologies. Let me know if you want any more in-depth videos on the underworlds, or if you can think of any other mythologies to compare. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more.